Okay. Hello, everybody. We're going to do a little talk here about segmentation and Akamai and what we have to offer. So we've been doing this for many years now, segmentation, and I think we're pretty good at it. So there's a lot of reasons to do segmentation. Everyone has different ones, obviously. If you're in finance or law or media, right? There's a lot of different reasons to do it. Some of these may stand out more for you than others. And do any particular stand out for you? Regulations and compliance, yeah. Those are obviously very big ones. Compliance is incredibly important. And we think we get people all the way there, right? I mean, the whole point is to get them to compliance as quickly as possible, right? To deliver that. But obviously there's many reasons, right? Audits, obviously vulnerabilities, 0 days, all of these things are sort of fact of life, right? For all of us in the security world. So the top challenges, right, I think that we can all agree on. Obviously ransomware, malware has been an issue for many years. And dealing with third-party risk. And of course things coming down from the board as well, right? The efforts to just make things better, right, across the enterprise, whether that's on-premise, in the cloud, and in other environments. So, and I feel like also over the past few years, IoT and OT devices have certainly become more and more of a concern. So I don't know, do any of you deal with OT or IoT at all? IoT, yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. They can be exposed to the internet, and they're also a great vector, right, for malware, ransomware to get in. So protecting that has become more and more of an issue over the past number of years. So we encompass all of these things with one solution is the idea. And of course, things have only gotten more complicated for the defenders, right? Things are just more complicated when it comes to breaches, right? They're more and more sophisticated. There are more and more vulnerabilities every day. And once something gets inside, right, it can move in any number of ways from point A to point B. Now, there are potentially millions of paths, right, to get from someone's laptop to the database server that's sitting on the back end somewhere, right? So the whole idea is to reduce the number of potential connections that you have, right, and limit it so then you can then control them. And in doing that, you can reduce the blast radius of any kind of incident that's happening in the environment, right? It's not, it's easy to say, but it can be done, and we do it on a daily basis. So there was a quote a number of years ago where segmentation products are where CISOs go to die, and this is definitely can be true. They can be difficult projects. There's a lot of hurdles at times through them, right, to get from where you are today to where you want to be, right, in terms of segmenting and securing applications or securing digital crown jewels or certain environments from each other. And it can, a lot of these projects, the value, like the time to value just takes too long, right? And they don't get that sort of return on investment until it's either unrealized or it takes far too long to get to, right? So we're all about trying to reduce that time and get you value as soon as possible, right? So our methodology for doing that's what it really centers around. And a lot of the time, customers, like, they'll deploy something, but they'll be stuck in this sort of like, they're logging everything, but they're not enacting any policies. They're not doing anything proactively, right? And so that can be sort of a limbo that people will sit in for far too long. And they're not realizing any value from the actual project. So there's obviously a better way to do this. And our first step really is to give you as much visibility as possible to understand what machines are located where, right? Whether they're endpoints, whether they're servers or VMs. So to understand where they are, to understand who they're talking with, over what network links they're speaking, and then with that data, it's so much easier then to create policy in and around the environments. So that's just the fundamental step, right? To understand what the application dependencies are, right, for given applications and environments, and then create policy in and around those. And then, of course, integrations, right, with your SIM or network scanners, orchestration layers. Taking in data from lots of different sources also helps a great deal because it provides informational context in and around, like, the events you're looking at, the connections you see, the events that are taking place, any incidents that are happening. It just means that you can understand what's happening that much faster, and then you can also take action on the incidents in question, right? So you can resolve things that much faster. So all of these things are important. Some of them obviously more important than others, for depending on what you're after. And for me, the thing here is, like, the fastest time to policy is really where you get the most value, right? You're getting to policy that you can start alerting and generating quality alerts, as well as generating proactive policy to enforce the communications that you want, right? And to block the communications that you do not want. That's really the ultimate goal. And we have a lot of things that sort of speed you along that way. So whether that's like, we can cover OT, IoT, we can cover old OSs, new OSs, containers, Azure, AWS, PaaS environments, basically everything you can think of, right? We can cover all of these different environments, and that helps a great deal, right? To understand where your issues might lie. Oftentimes we don't know exactly, right, where the most critical issues are. But if you do have broad coverage, you can then, figure out, where you need to apply policies and what might be more critical than others. And of course, we have a lot of expertise in our analyst group that help people create policies and, help you move faster. We're using AI. We're using basically everything at our disposal, right, to make this easier and faster. So going back to AI, of course, AI seems to be the inescapable topic of the year. But we're using that as well in the product wherever it really provides value. So the whole idea here is, like, it can surface events that are of interest, but also you can then also interact with the product in a more natural way. So if you want to ask it certain kinds of questions, we can give you those answers, right? All in more of a natural language, sort of easy to understand way. And the same goes for, say, responding to an incident. When you're doing that, you can ask us various kinds of questions. We can give you more details around incidents, and then you can just resolve them that much faster, right? I think everybody wants to do that. So there's lots of issues with the impact of either a network that's not segmented, right, where you have a lot of extraneous communications, a lot of unnecessary crosstalk that's happening between different environments and different workloads, and it bogs down the network, right? So there's the idea of making the network far more efficient and reducing those connections, and then also which allows you to speed things up, essentially, right? And of course, make things more secure. And for us, it's really about protecting these sort of critical applications and digital crown jewels, right? If you want to get into the specifics of it, I'm more than happy to talk about this after this of the demo stations. But essentially, we can speed up your network because if you're using older tools, we can actually accelerate the applications you're using. Because a lot of the older tools, say for instance IP tables and Linux, were not designed for this kind of stuff. They're not enterprise firewalls, but we are, right? So we can speed up and make the network and the applications more efficient. Just sort of an added bonus. Let's see. So here's an example of a bank. They were trying to do some segmentation, and over the course of 4 years, they didn't get essentially anywhere. They didn't have any real blocking policy in place, and they were mired in that limbo, right, of logging everything but not doing anything, right, and not getting any value from this. So they acquired another bank, which we were already deployed at, which gave them the opportunity to see what an actual, real, functioning segmentation solution looks like, right? I mean, there's probably no better way to actually do that. So they saw how it actually works, how it functions, and they were like, you know what? This sounds great. Let's do this. So we went in, and we were able to deploy and create a real segmentation solution and started implementing blocking policies. It wasn't rocket science, right? Not for us. But this often happens with a lot of these projects, right? This is a large integrator, and they were looking at, this is a large-scale project, so they were looking at protecting lateral movement and endpoints. So they had over 300,000 machines, and they wanted to blanket all of those with simple, practical policies to prevent lateral movement. So they had suffered a breach, and this was their mandate. So we went in, we deployed the agents in a couple of weeks, and then we implemented blocking policies that were very practical and common sense oriented, and we were off to the races in 3 weeks. So it doesn't have to be. You don't want to overcomplicate things. That would be my takeaway from this slide. You can implement very practical policies very quickly and get you can get value from these kinds of projects very quickly, right? And that is it. So any questions from here? I would say the benefits that we have are we're incredibly flexible in terms of the data that we can take in. So we can take in east-west traffic flows and north-south traffic flows from bare metal, VMs, containers, and other places, right? We can take in layer 4 data from spans and taps, virtual spans and taps, network packet brokers, VPC flow data, SFlow, NetFlow, whatever you want. We can connect to metadata from like CMDBs, get data from scanners, whatever you want. We'll figure out a way to bring it in if we already don't have a way to bring it in. And once we bring it in, we can help you visualize it, right? And then from there, we'll help you create policy. So we're very flexible in the data that we can bring in. We're very flexible in the logic that you can implement in policy, which I think we're more flexible than anyone else when it comes to the various kinds of policy. You can do whitelisting, you can do blacklisting, you can mix and match these on an arbitrary basis. One application may lend itself to whitelisting. Another application or another environment may lend itself to blacklisting. Or maybe you just want to do monitoring only in one part of the environment, but you want to do blocking over here. So you can mix and match all of these things. So that helps a lot, right? In other products, you have to choose how you do it first. And that's the policy you set for everything. That's just not really a real-world compatible solution, right? So I feel like that's one of the biggest differences. So the question is around like policy and policy creation. So we have a number of ways to create policy. You can create it one-off, right? One by one, like a traditional firewall, which is sometimes very handy to do. Like say, if there's a process that's running around speaking on the network, you can go in and create a one-line rule that says, don't allow this process to speak anywhere on my network over any port or protocol, period. Right? You don't have to do that very often. But when you do need to do it, it is incredibly handy to be able to ban a process, right, across the network. In addition to things like that, we can do, we have templates. So the template is a bunch of different recommended sort of policies, right? Say, for instance, locking down Active Directory or doing inbound, outbound whitelisting on a given application. So we'll take the data that we've collected, all the flow data, we combine that with the template, and then that generates rules. And then you can edit those rules if you like, or you could just publish them and see how they perform. And we don't do any rules in block mode right out of the gate. That's not how we work. We're very conservative about not harming the business, right? We don't want to stop any applications from doing their job. The point is that you can publish those rules, see how they perform, update those rules. Once you like how they're working, then you can push them to block, right? So that means you can get policy out there and see how it works in a couple of hours, or essentially 10 minutes. But you can do it very quickly and then see how it actually works in the real world, update it, and then push to block. And there's also lots of other policies that we have that are sort of pre-canned policies that you can use like across the network that are just more common sense policies, so like the ones from this particular example. So you can use like regular common sense policies that we already have. You can use the templates to generate policy. You can, if you have your own policies that you want to come up with, you can take them all and import them all at once. So we make it easy, essentially.